Oh my goodness, let's give it up for Carla again. You know, in both of our messages today, we've had ordinary people who step into these circumstances. They see an opportunity and they say, I want to be a life giver. And what ends up happening is that they become extraordinary. Carla, an extraordinary investment in our city. The thought of Grant Dopel, he was a guy that was in my campus when I was up north. He was just an ordinary guy, and all of a sudden, 28,000 people have the chance to hear about Jesus. Extraordinary stuff. It reminds me of a talk that I've been working on here for so long, that these unique opportunities, if we can only see them and step into them, extraordinary things start happening. So today I want to talk about the power of moments. 5 years ago, I had the privilege of dropping my oldest son, Sam, down at this just a wonderful apartment complex, a great job in New York City. My daughter and my now daughter-in-law came with me, and the four of us went out, moved him in, and after a weekend of getting him all set up, we had the chance to go out for dinner. It was a little bit of a sad moment, so I wanted to kind of reboot and celebrate and encourage him and give him a pat on the back and send him off well. And as we had this amazing dinner, I asked some questions. I wanted to make it a memorable event, and I said, well, let's talk about some things that really matter. What's the top 3 gifts that you've ever received? And we went around as a foursome, and 4 people times 3 answers is 12 opportunities. 12 out of 12 opportunities to talk about the most important gifts we received were all about experiences. None of those 12, none of them were about things or stuff. That's remarkable if you think about it. The gifts that mattered the most to all of us were those experiences that changed our lives. And so I started thinking about experiences in general. I was running a nonprofit and had the privilege of doing these different fundraising things, and most of us have been to these kind of events, and we understand what happens there, and you have some cool mementos and some cool memorabilia and some cool items, and you try to auction those off and get some money. And then you also have some experiences. Well, the shift became dramatic. I did this for like 12 years. The early years, there was some real, mojo behind the memorabilia stuff. A guitar signed by U2 and some other really cool things, some golf memorabilia from the Masters and all these other kind of interesting items. They sold for pretty well, but little by little, the experiences sold for so much more. Going on and being on the Ellen DeGeneres show sold for an amazing amount of money, being on Oprah, all these different kinds of experiences, renting a house down in Hilton Head that slept 18. Enormous investment was generated. Experiences define our lives. So I started thinking, God, what is it about experiences that I need to learn? What is it that I need to be doing different? Because I don't want to be ordinary. And somehow when I step in these moments, things become extraordinary. What is it that I need to learn? And so I started thinking about the most impactful moments in my life, my entire life. And I came up with a handful of pictures here to depict or communicate what those would look like. And the first one you see right here is this amazing picture of Grand Teton National Park. This is my favorite place in the world. Because of my work, I had the privilege of going to a number of places all over the world, and my absolute favorite is just outside Jackson Hole, Wyoming, at a place called Grand Teton National Park. And you see the sun setting on the top of the Tetons. This is the actual Grand Teton. Then you have the lower range, and they're spectacular. Then you see this amazing forestry color. It's just an incredibly beautiful moment. I believe God was showing off when he made this thing. And somehow we all see these different scapes and different kinds of depictions of nature, and our heart jumps because there's something important going on here. God is saying this is beautiful. He doesn't have to tell us it's beautiful. When we're in the middle of it, we recognize it. And so when I was here, I had the privilege of going by myself. I had the privilege of going with my wife. I had the privilege of going with my children. And to this day, my 2 oldest, the boys, they both say this is their favorite vacation they've ever taken. I mean, they got a chance to go in and see bear prints in the dirt, and they got to see buffalo and elk and all these incredibly different animals taught by the forest rangers. We had unbelievable experiences, and at night when we were toast, we'd sit and play cards all night long. It was a defining moment in our life. God immersed us in his beauty, and as a result, it was a major moment in all of our lives. Here you have a beautiful picture of a couple that's splitting a gut. I don't know if you're like me, but I remember vividly the times that I laughed for 5 minutes or more in my life. Can you recall those? Oh my goodness. I had them in my teens. I had them in my college years. I had them in my early adult life. I had them as recently as a few years ago going to Israel. There was a moment that was absolutely hysterical where we misplaced the word mines to talk about something that blows up because we went in a very secure area, and mimes the people who do this kind of a weird thing. And it created this hysterical moment between a new friend and mine. And we're now immensely close friends. These moments stick out in our hearts and minds, and they last. There's something about these moments. God gives us joy and laughter and humor. This is another one of my favorite pictures, my favorite moments in my life. I remember with unbelievable clarity where and how long it took to train my 3 kids to ride a bike on their own. Here's this picture of a father or an uncle or a foster parent, whatever it is, just taking this young man and getting him the right kind of equation to figure out his balance and ride the bike by himself. Oh my gosh, one of my absolute favorite memories, taking my kids and letting them figure it out and finding out they could balance themselves, and they now were mobile. It was an incredible gift, and I think it's just the way God gives us that chance to enjoy when we start learning a skill, how he feels toward us. And then finally, I close with a picture about the amazing 2016 year Cubs. Now, for those of you who are not baseball fans, give me a break for a second. I know Jason Hobner, our campus pastor down in downtown Lexington, talked about it a few weeks ago, not liking it. Baseball's been part of our upbringing. My wife, Lori, and I come from Chicago, and I'm telling you, being a Chicago baseball fan, they lost my entire life. So in 2016, they just started getting good, and my son, the oldest, Sam, said, "Dad, whatever it is, I want to cave all of my current and future birthdays and Christmases, and I want to get somehow to Chicago for the Cubs convention. And I'd love it if you'd talk Ben into joining me and sacrificing his gifts and his birthdays as well, because we want to go to the Cub convention together with you." And so we saved our money, we combined some different resources. A friend of mine donated some points so we could stay in a hotel right downtown, right by the convention. And we had a weekend to remember. It's a weekend where we just drank in all of the amazing gifts around us. We stayed in a fabulous hotel. We ate on Michigan Avenue. We went to the Cubs convention, and this was the year where at the very beginning we got a chance to be part of the convention, and they rode it through from cover to cover. They were in first place, and they won the World Series and got the 108-year-old debt off of their backs. It was an incredible moment. We cried. I mean, we had such an intimate experience. We laughed, we drank, we ate, we did everything, and it was a pinnacle moment in my life. It was truly extraordinary. And as I look at these moments, I think about, oh my goodness, these are the moments that mirror the experience that God feels with his sons and daughters, with you and I. When he allows us to experience what he experiences, there's something extraordinary that happens. And I believe that if there's anything that you take away, I want you to know that living life to its fullest requires more and more and more life-giving moments. If we're to really understand the verse that I'm about to go through, we have to press into these moments. Jesus said the following: "The thief comes only to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." It's an invitation that we often glance over. I mean, how many times have you heard that verse? How many times have you, if you're new to the Bible, if you're new to Jesus, this whole invitation sounds a little crazy. Who's the thief? What's going on? What am I getting robbed of? And what life is he promising? He's not promising comfort by any means, but he's promising an extraordinary life. And the choice is that simple. There's an enemy who's trying to rob us of all the things that are life-giving. And then he's trying to say, but I will give you life. Here on earth, this isn't about some fire insurance when we die that we get to go to heaven only. This is much more about how we live today and whether we're willing to pursue a relationship with him, if we're willing to step in and recognize these moments, and if we're willing to invest in them. They end up changing our lives. And so that's in front of us today. To pick or to not pick life or death. I want to jolt us out of this idea that there is some God that we say yes, and we want to go to heaven when we die. That is not what God's invitation is about. Though it's true, that is not what he's inviting us to. He's inviting us to life. And if we step into it, everything changes. It's not just faith that explores this idea of life and the power of moments. It's also businesses. The world knows that this is true. They had a study that was done by some psychologists about the Disney experience, and they gave people an ability to factor in with a monitor how their experience was going throughout the day. And for some of the moments, you saw different rankings, right? You're standing in line with your kids waiting, saying, why can't I get through this line? The moments rated very low. They were like a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10. For other moments, when you're paying inordinate amounts of money for a little bit of food or your kid's asking to buy something, it's maybe a 2. But when they had the chance to put Mickey ears on little Junior, they shot through up to a 10. When they had the chance to go on Space Mountain, shot up to a 9. And so they gave these numbers to the business folks, and the business folks said, yeah, it'll average somewhere around a 6. We'll expect a ranking of about 6 for this day. Turned out to be completely wrong. Psychologists knew there's something called the peak end effect. And that is that we remember and they create indelible moments, indelible imprints, things that we can't forget on our heart. And so those 9s and 10s distorted the whole day. And the days were ranked in the 9-2, 9-3 range, in spite of waiting in line inordinately. And God says, yes, that's what this is about. I want to create these moments that change you forever. I want to invite you into life in the fullest. Yes, your days are going to be filled with a lot of different things that you need to do. But I want you to go after life, and I want you to make more moments. The world knows it because they have this thing called FOMO. For those of us who've heard this, it was on commercials. It's talked about all the time, last several years. Fear of missing out. We don't want to miss out on key moments. We want to be included with our friends. If something cool happened, we want in. We take pictures of ourselves and of the cool places we went so we can tell other people, look at this moment. It's a phenomena, and it's up to us to figure out how we apply it to our faith, how we get to the place of an extraordinary life. Why are experiences so amazing? What is it that comprises, what is it that makes them up to be so powerful? Well, there's a book actually called The Power of Moments. As I was doing research, I found out there was a book on it. And these two authors, Chip and Dan Heath, said that there's incredible amounts in research and so on and so forth. They have insights. It's a decent book. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because it's a lot of turf to cover to get some of the points. But I'll tell you what, there were 3 points that I found very, very impactful. And these 3 points tell us that if you do these 3 things, you're going to have a very significant moment. You're going to have a life-giving moment. And the first one is that it requires being significant and somewhat defining, like a punctuation mark in our life. Something that happens that's eventful. For me, I know that this is true. I had the privilege of working for 12 years on a center for people who've been under the generational curses of poverty. I believe that there was some different way to attack this thing. We did research all over the country, and after 12 years, we opened. And I remember walking through the night that we dedicated this amazing facility. I just wept. It wasn't a weeping about the achievement that I may have had in this moment. It was about the humbling experience of being included in something so important. And for those of you who came a couple of weeks ago, you heard about this center, CityLink Center, and how it's, in 1 year, the last year, had as many as 1,201 people go through and have a different outlook and changing the trajectory of their lives. What a privilege. It was defining, it was significant, a punctuation mark, celebrating that night we dedicated CityLink Center. Number 2, it's got to be socially meaningful. This means that relationship has everything to do with it. The more that we're in relationship, the more that these moments can pop up. We don't have that many significant and defining moments when we're by ourselves, do we? Think back in your catalog. What have you got when you're by yourself? Not too much. And so we get into these circumstances with people who matter. And when we are with people who matter, they have an immense impact on us. That experience that I had in Israel, where I'm laughing with my new friend till our guts hurt, It's still a defining moment in our relationship, and we're great friends and still continue to talk almost multiple times a week at least. There's a component that when we're connected relationally, we have a higher chance of experiencing these moments. And thirdly, the more surprising, new, and novel a moment is, the more different it is from what we normally do, the more it has a chance to stand out. So in the event that we can create more and more fresh experiences, we have the chance to experience more defining moments. So if you get into the same place where you're doing the same restaurant, where you're doing the same kind of thing, you come home, you start working on Netflix because you just want some margin, you take your food, you ram it down your throat. Let me tell you, those are not defining moments. You are not going to find them. What is it that's new and that's fresh? What is the world that God's inviting you into? What's the experience like Grant Dopel starting prison ministry? Just by bringing Undivided into prisons. Now, an immense ministry. An ordinary guy who's become extraordinary because he went after something new and fresh and significant and relational. All of us have some of these moments. We all have different kinds of pictures, or maybe it's a treasure chest, what you might run back into your house for if your house was on fire. What is it that you want to bring with you? Is it pictures? Are there certain mementos that signify these moments? You almost know by defining, what is it that I want to take with me? What matters? It's not your bank account. It's not the stuff that you've accumulated inside your house. It's some other currency altogether. And so we have these unique moments, and the question is, how do we make more of them? I believe that the secret is choice making. So if you take something away, take that choice making is the secret to more defining moments, because you are going to be faced with questions. You're going to be faced with choices where if you opt in, your life's going to be better. It's going to be more filled with life. It's going to be that life to the fullest that Jesus explained. I'm only going to use that one verse. It's either death or it's life. And Jesus says life is better. And I believe you know it. So how do we go after that? Well, sometimes it's just knowing what we shouldn't do. A couple of examples here. One of them, I missed a moment with my wife. She bought me this fantastic concert experience to go see Eric Clapton. Those of you who are older than 40 know who Eric Clapton is. We went and had this fantastic meal. We went to the theater, got this amazing show. We went through the whole thing. He's finishing up with his closing song before the encores. It was just terrific. We had a wonderful time. And with that, Lori leans over and she says, so, can we take off and get into the parking lot? It's going to be a mess out there. I said, but the encore, babe. The encore, we're going to have two of his best songs. I'm sure he's going to play Sunshine of Your Love. I want to stay for the encore. She goes, yeah, but maybe we can hear it. Why don't we go up and maybe hear it underneath the seating area? And so we went up there and we listened to the beginning of the song, and sooner or later she just wanted to go. And I'm not throwing her under the bus. It's just when we start pursuing comfort or ease or simplicity or whatever, we start thinking of leisure and margin, it compromises the very thing we're going after. We were going to attend for a very, very specific defining moment, and I missed the two encores. We heard them as we were walking to the car. You could hear the thud, the melody. Or else maybe it's something that you tried, but it just didn't happen. Another opportunity is something like what happened to us as we were graduating college. It was either pre or post-graduation, and I was starting to pursue my wife, Lori, and we were both dating other people at the time, and I thought, I'm going to really have a really serious heart-to-heart talk. We know that we're right for each other, but it's taken a long time. We've been missing each other and so on, so I bought a dozen roses. I bought a dozen donuts and got a thermos of coffee. And I had kind of organized the whole thing. And I was going to visit her on a Saturday morning. And her parents were up at a vacation spot up north. And so I thought, for sure, this is going to be a great heart-to-heart. We're going to met her at about 10:30, I'm thinking, go knock on the door. Her mom answers the door. It was not the moment that I thought it was. And with that, I whisked away and threw literally all the roses, all the coffee, all the donuts into the bushes. And I tried acting like it didn't even happen. It was a disaster. It was awful. I was cringing inside. I'm going, oh my gosh, this backfired so badly. Now she's going to have to talk about why Mark's here with roses. It was an awful moment, a moment that didn't happen. But I don't resent that or mind that I did that at all, because I went for it. It was a defining moment, and to this day I laugh about it. It's a delight to go after things, whether they materialize or not. Man, one of the best examples of this is looking at the birth rates in our country. You're wondering, what? Yeah, our birth rates, right? So 2.0 for every woman, that she should be bearing 2 children in order to keep the population the same. Make sense? Our birth rate has, for the first time in history, dipped below the 2.0 rate, and women are now having about 1.76 children each. I know you can't have 0.76 children, but they're having 1.76 children each. Bottom line is people are having one much more often or none much more often. And as a result, we're not even reproducing at the rate that would hold our population stable. And so they did some research. Why are you not having as many children? And it was across the board, 4 out of the top 5 answers, all about comfort, margin, income, leisure, economics. We want to make a lot more money. We want to increase our margin. We want to make sure that we can take care of a kid if we have them. We want to have more time so that we can go on more vacations. We want to fill in the blanks. They were all selfish reasons generally. I'm not condemning anyone who decides not to have children that isn't, or I'm not trying to say that those of us who want to have children and can't aren't, in the same situation. What I'm saying is we often pursue leisure and economics, and it compromises our ability to have these moments. So many of the moments that I have are because of the people in my life. So whether your parents, your foster parents, your aunts or uncles, or you're just a family friend who's real involved, like Carla was talking about, get involved, mentor, give your time. It changes our life when we start looking outside versus inside. And so this phenomena about having kids is something that's pretty interesting. I want to show you 2 situations where actually it goes up. So let's look at the first one in a commercial by the NFL about birth rates. That's awesome. Who's next? What's the city that's going to win the Super Bowl next? Because your birth rates skyrocket. If you have a snowstorm or a rainstorm, your birth rate skyrocket. We love experience. We long for it. We make things like New Year's Eve just so that we can say punctuation. Let's have a significant moment. Let's try to make it romantic. Let's do some kind of commitments for next year to be better. We have these life celebrations. I know a number of women who look their whole lives about their wedding day. There's holidays, there's so many other things. Let's take a look at a backyard experience that creates this magic. Here's people who are trying to sell briquettes. All right, most of us have moved to gas grills, but this thing makes me want to do exactly this. Let's take a look at the Kingsford charcoal ad.
Strike a match, catch a flame. Spark the conversation and ignite those appetites. Oh yeah, now we're cooking. From backyards to ball yards, we're heating things up in a big way. And the whole block's invited. So come as you are, as long as you come hungry. Kingsford, start something.
It's brilliant. Start something. Create the situation that you can have a magic moment, something that's outside yourself. The whole neighborhood's invited. You saw everybody coming in and joining and bringing something. The little girl trying to bite over the guy's shoulder. It's this gorgeous piece of chicken getting grilled. It's an amazing invitation to create one of these moments. Recently, I've been trending toward boring. Okay, true confessions. Work volume gets up, I start getting boring. My fatigue increases, start getting boringer, if there is such a word. Knee starts acting up, get more boring. Whatever it is that the circumstances are in your life, I want to challenge you. Break the trend toward boring. Nobody wants to be around somebody who's boring. And I was starting to get there, not that I fall prey, but I was weakening over the summer, which should be the highlights. And of all things, my beautiful daughter Bethany is staying with us the whole summer as she had an internship at Valvoline. And I'm sitting here saying, I want to make this defining because she's a junior, going to be a senior. It's her last time we're going to have her perhaps. We want to make this memorable. We want some unforgettable moments. So about a month ago, I colluded with my wife and said, we've got to start really doing some important things, whatever they are. So she took her getting her nails done. They took her doing some shopping things, some real girly stuff, and then I tried taking her on some stuff. We want to create the conditions that bring us into those moments. So what is it that you can do to bring on more of these moments? I suggest there's 3 things, and real quickly I'm going to try to blast through them. Number 1, be more interested. I want to challenge you to be interested. It's the vector that goes out. It's not the one that looks in. If you care about your family, if you care about your friends, if you care about your coworkers, start asking some real questions, not how was your day? Okay, let me challenge you. Just scrap that thing right off the bat. What was the best dream you had the last 2 weeks? What was the most interesting person that you didn't know before that you got a chance to talk to? Start asking some things that will provoke some interesting and deeper conversations, folks. I hate when I ask the board thing. You know, I failed for years. When my kids would come home from school, I'd sit there and I'd say, okay, what'd you learn today? That's crazy. What are we thinking? How is that going to be some kind of a connection with our kids who've just spent an inordinate amount of time at their school? Ask some interesting questions. Care about finding, discovering, almost like you're on an expedition to mine the beautiful and wonderfulness inside the people that you do life with. Number 2, be interesting. All right? Don't go bored. I fall prey to this all the time. When I shut my mouth up, when I try taking care of myself, when I huddle up in the corner, when I play my little electronic game on my iPad, when I watch Netflix, whatever it is, I start curling up. And there's no way that I'm interesting enough for anybody to care. Are you interesting? What is it that you're doing that's sparking toward interest? Is there anything new going on in your life? What is it? Are you trying some new hobbies? Are you going to different restaurants? What are you doing that's breaking the mold, that's pushing the envelope, that's adding something dynamic? And the third part is being a life giver. Man, I want to challenge us all to be life givers versus life takers. We all know what that means, right? There's people in your lives, and you know who you are, who just come and take. They only talk about themselves. They don't ask you a question. They only create situations that are going to bless them. Folks, if we are going to be successful at creating life, we need to be life givers. The people around us are getting fed. They're getting enormous investments from us because we're giving our heart away. Man, I want us to be a people, I want us to be a community that gives our heart away. And you saw it modeled when Grant Dopel was talking about prison ministry, when Carla Jackson was talking about her investment, taking her front porch experience and giving it to the community of Fayette schools and beyond. Our city's different because of Carla, people like her. What is it that you're doing to be a life giver? And the reason I know that those are the 3 is because that's what Jesus did. Jesus was interested. He asked questions of his friends all the time. He was interesting beyond belief. Can you imagine hanging out with Jesus when he throws a party and he makes the best wine? Then you're sitting there going, hey, Jesus, could you give me a cocktail? I know that we haven't invented those things, but I'm sure you could come up with something like a margarita. Can we have one of those? Just think about the crazy discussions that Jesus would have had. And man, did he bring life. He said it over and over again, but he brought healing, he brought care, he brought love, he brought forgiveness, he brought richness to people's lives that he was around. And so that's what we need to do as a community. We need to be interested, interesting, and life givers. So in conclusion, I'm just sitting here thinking about moments in my life that I want to be different. My wife and I are going to celebrate 30 years of marriage next year. And so, yeah, that's good. And so, Lord knows I don't want to buy her another thing, though I'll probably buy her something. But the accumulation and the achievement is not going to go. It's not going to matter. I want to add to her gallery. I want to add to the things that are momentous in her life. And so I don't know what it's going to be, but I'm working on it. And it's going to involve the kids because they weren't there when we got married. thankfully. This is an invitation to say, I want to let you know that the world stops right now and you matter the most right here, right now. And I want our kids to be there with us because they matter next most. And whatever it is that's in your life that you want to take and make happen in your lives, put those situations together, because while Netflix is cheap, seeing your son's life change is not. And it requires planning and investment and time and perhaps money. Whatever it is, put the investment in the right spots, because Jesus is calling us to life, and it's the enemy who's trying to rob it from us. And unless we fight for those moments, we're not going to have that gallery that Jesus is inviting us to create. Let's pray. Father, thanks for this day. Thanks for this message. Thanks for the people who shared about changing who we are. God, I know that one of the secrets is making more magic moments. God, I want our community to go after it, to be interested and interesting, and to give life away, because that's what you showed us how to do. So God, I pray all these things, and that everybody in this place would think in the next couple weeks about architecting and designing, planning a beautiful moment, so they might step into the richness of the extraordinary. And whether it's just for fun or if it's for changing lives, God, I know you're going to show favor as we try to step toward life. We pray all these things in the name of the one who modeled it for us. In the name of Jesus, amen.